tonight, if you would, please go to your Nehemiah chapter 5 and verse 14. Okay. It's before Psalms. About 2 books. Or 2 or 3 books. 3 books. Go backwards. Psalms, then before it is Job, before that is Esther, then before that is Nehemiah. Okay. Okay, let's read. I'm going to read from the Net Bible, which is the New English translation. Let me go there, please. From the day that I was appointed governor in the land of Judah, that is, from the 20th year until the 32nd year of King Artaxerxes, 12 years in all, neither I nor my relatives ate the food allotted to the governor. But the former governors who preceded me had burdened the people and had taken food and wine from them, in addition to 40 shekels of silver. Their associates were also domineering over the people, but I did not behave this way due to my fear of God. I'll tell you, are you following these 2 verses? Because here we have a politician, a governor, appointed by the emperor to run a province. And apparently every governor had the right to tax the people in his province so he could live lavishly, because that would be to represent the majesty of the empire, to see the governor's palace as a representative of the wealth of the empire. But look what Nehemiah does. He does not eat the food that the governor by law was allotted to him. In other words, he wasn't taking a salary from his work. In other words, he was living on his own money. Can you imagine a politician doing that today?
Not exactly.
Why is it that a politician can go into office, make $100,000 a year, there for 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, or whatever, and they come out a multimillionaire? Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, this is what goes on every single place. The corruption inside of politics is over money and over. But look what he's doing. He said, "I did not do it according to my former governors who were in the province." Apparently, all the Jews who were in power prior to his regime did exactly that. They burdened the people so that they could live lavishly. I mean, we have terrible examples of this in the world. I mean, down in Venezuela, for example, today, the people are starving. They've looted all the supermarkets. They're eating dogs. They're eating practically each other. And the dictator lives like a king. Oh, who was it that said, I don't think it was Marie Antoinette. It's ascribed to Marie Antoinette. Remember her famous saying?
Cake.
Remember what the context was, Warren?
I don't know. The people were starving or whatever.
Yeah, the statement was, I believe, it's attributed to her, but I'm not sure if it was her historically, but let's say it was. It says, Your Majesty, the peasants have no bread to eat. Well, then let them eat cake. Okay. You can't get any more cruel than that. I mean, so that's how these people can be, right?
And then they cut off her head.
Well, that's true too. That happened later. That was a revolution, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens, that the people revolt against people like this. Mm-hmm. But you look at Juan Perón and Evita Perón down in Argentina. Again, living lavishly off the country while they're peasant, that people are peasants. So, but look what Nehemiah says. When I was governor for 12 years, that's 3 of our presidential terms, that's a pretty long time. He said, I didn't do that. I didn't do what those former governors were doing. Look what they did. They were burdening the people, taking food and wine from them, in addition to 40 shekels, I guess that was a tax, per year of silver. So they were enriching themselves off these poor people. Their associates also were domineering over the people. When is that not true? Look how many times bureaucrats run roughshod over the population, making them kowtow to these various regulations very harshly. He said, but look, I did not behave this way due to what? My fear of God. Did you ever, we used to be called a God-fearing nation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were actually known to be that. Would you agree? I mean, so what happened? I mean, what happened to us? Why are we no longer God-fearing?
One of the things I think is probably because we let a lot of people in that were never any good in the first place. And that they even got worse as they went along and pushed away people that just wanted to be alive and have food in their pantry and stuff like that. And they got pushed out of the way instead of being treated like they should be treated. So they have food and they have water and they have everything that they need, shoes and stuff.
Became too wealthy.
I mean, the thing is that the wealth is on the backs of poor people.
Yeah.
I don't think you can get God angrier over anything than that. Because when you trump on a widow and an orphan and poor people to make yourself wealthy on their backs, you know that blood, sweat, and tears, right? Mm-hmm. In other words, bleed more for me, sweat more for me, and weep more tears for me that I can become rich off of your blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, but the thing is, the fear of God shows us, this is a great picture of the fear of God because it shows what fear of God does to people. Mm-hmm. It makes them restrain themselves and walk the right path. In other words, what decent person, you ask me, what decent person would live lavishly when the people who support them in that lavish way are hurting like crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, where's the fear of God?
There isn't. It's going so far down anymore.
Well, I can tell you in this respect, all of those former governors who did do this, what I think is this. They said to themselves, well, the emperor of Persia wants us to live lavishly in the province. So it's the law, so I might as well take whatever the law provides. But Nehemiah had the decency and the fear of God to be able to see through that and say, wait a minute, these people that I'm going to be, taxing are already burdened. But look up and further up in the page of chapter 5. Look what was going on. Okay, look what was going on. Like verse 1 there.
Yeah. Paper doesn't want to go.
That was too thin, right? No, it's very thin. And there was a great outcry from the people and their wives against their fellow Jews. Why? He said, with our sons and daughters we are many, but we must obtain food in order to live and stay alive. In other words, they're trying to survive. Yeah. He says, we're putting up our fields, our vineyards, our houses as collateral in order to get food during this famine. And so there were those who said, we borrowed money to pay our taxes to the king and on our fields and our vineyards. And now, though we share in the same flesh and blood as our fellow Jews, and our children are just as their children, still we have found it necessary to subject our sons and daughters to slavery, to pay off the debt. Some of our daughters have been subjected to slavery. Now we are powerless to help them, since our fields and our vineyards now belong to other people. So that's the kind of times these people often live with. Famine, to the point where they couldn't even eat without selling their houses, without selling their vineyards, without selling their kids. Right?
Right.
So, Nehemiah's going, hey, I'm not going to take advantage of these poor people. He loved them. This is the love of God. It's also the fear of God, right? So he says, very angry. And he got them all to pay. He got all that stuff fixed up. So let's go back to 15. We were. I'll tell you, people wonder, should Christians have the fear of God? I say yes. Here's why. We're supposed to love God, right? Are you there? Chapter 5:14. Are you still there?
Yeah.
We're the same chapter. We haven't moved. We're back to verse 14. Okay. So here's the thing. What Jesus said about loving him, he said, whoever obeys me is he that loves me, right? So our love for the Lord is expressed in our obedience. But what the fear of God does is it makes us avoid evil. Now, question, why should we fear God?
Because of all things that, if you do all the things that are wrong, he's going to lay you down.
Well, let's take a good look. Okay, yeah, right. Let's go to the book of Luke, but stay there. We're going to come back. Go to the book of Luke, chapter 12. Okay, verse 4. Luke chapter 12, verse 4 and 5.
Okay. And what was it?
4 and 5.
4 and 5?
Luke chapter 12, verse 4 and 5. Everybody there? You know what? I'm going to close this book here because it's bearing that Bible. Pardon me. Okay. I tell you, my friends, Jesus speaking to his apostles, I tell you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that have nothing more that they can do. But I will warn you whom you should fear. Fear the one who, after the killing, has authority to throw you into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. So what do you think was bothering Nehemiah? This. What people do not accept today, in my opinion, is that they have to account to God for their lives. And God is going to look at their lives as to what they did, how they lived it. He expects a Christian to have produced a good life because of his faith, but if he doesn't have a good life to show, that means he has no faith. That's what John said. He said, if any man says, I know him, and yet does not obey his commandments, he is a liar. So there's plenty of people like that. They have no fear of God. You know what? I had this thought today. Actually, it's been for a while. You know what an atheist is, right? Mm-hmm. An atheist is someone who doesn't believe in God. But here's my thought. My thought is this. There are many people who say they believe in God, but are actually functioning atheists. Here's what I mean. They live as if they won't have to account to him, or that their accounting to him will be nothing. In other words, they will live a wicked life unrepentantly. They'll have any conscience, but they say, I believe in God, and expect that belief to carry them through Judgment Day. But that's actually a functional atheist, because he doesn't believe in what's important about God. Remember, most atheists are atheists because they don't want to believe they have to account to him. That's really the issue. So, anyway, so Jesus taught the fear of God in Luke chapter 12, 4 or 5. Okay. Let's head back to Nehemiah, where we were. Okay, let's continue looking at him. Okay, Nehemiah. So the fear of God, that he knew that he would have to account to God one day for his term of office. Let me tell you something, one more thing. When I pray for leaders, political leaders, one of the things I often bring up is this. I tell them, I say, Lord, something like this. I'll go, Lord, those people who are inhabiting these offices that you set up are going to have to account for their conduct in that office. And a lot of them are going to be put into hell over their conduct in office, right? Because, why? Because they have a lot more power. And the more power you have, the more accountable you are. Remember what it says in James chapter 3, verse 1? Don't turn it, I'll just read it for you. James 3. This is for Christians, actually. It says, don't many of you become teachers, my brothers and sisters, because you know that we will be judged more strictly. Do you realize that pastors and teachers and evangelists and people in that kind of a situation in the church, they have a stricter judgment to answer for? That is not good. That's not exactly good news. But it should make us be a lot more careful about what it is we do. I mean, if people want to become a pastor, they should be talked out of it. The reason why I say that is this. Because if they actually are called of God, they will be able to resist the talking out of. They'll go, no, I'm sure. So just you ought to know you're going to be held to a stricter judgment. You ready for that? Oh yeah, I mean, I want to have to be because I'm called. So just remember that. No, this is something you need to be told. Because we'll be judged more severely. Well, look at somebody like Moses. What happened to Moses? Moses, what did he do that went bad for him?
The rock.
Yeah, what was that? Remember the episode?
He hit the rock instead of talking to it.
Yeah.
So what happened to him?
Couldn't go in the promised land.
After 40 years of that toil, he could never walk into the goalpost. You're stopping me at the 1 yard line. He says, well, take a look from here, then you're not crossing that goal line. Yeah. It was like 40 years over that one thing. But Psalm 106, I believe it's Psalm 106 says, or 7, it says, it went ill for Moses because of his anger toward the people. He got so fed up with them that he did that. He was like, here, you rebels. Like that. It was like, and then he hit it. Like you could see the frustration in him. Like, it wasn't like he was really trying to do that deliberately. He was like, oh, like that, you know. It was like, oh, you know. And but a stricter judgment. Remember what happened to Uzziah the king when he walked into a temple with incense? Yeah. Remember? Oh, that's good. What?
Leprosy. Yeah.
He was struck from the forehead down, standing right there in the temple, and the priests who had went in there to stop him, they rushed him out of there. They thought he was going to die next, because you remember what the Lord did to Aaron and Miriam. Numbers chapter 12. Toward the end of the first couple years, Miriam and Aaron said, why should Moses get all of the glory or whatever? We're just as much of a prophet as he is. And it says, the Lord heard that. He says, come here, you three. So he summons Moses and Aaron and Miriam to the mountain. And then he read them the riot act. How dare you speak against Moses? He's the meekest man on earth. And you dare to talk to him like that? And it says, Miriam walked away a snow-white leper. And Moses fell on his face. He's the youngest brother. Oh, God, don't let her die, don't let her die. And Aaron's all freaking out and everything. And he said, so the Lord said, look, she shall bear her shame for 7 days. It's as if her father spat in her face. It's what he did to Miriam, the sister, and she was a wonderful woman. But boy, all she had to do was speak against his anointed, and yay. Boy, he has leprosy. Look what happened to Ananias and Sapphira. What happened? No, I shouldn't say those two. Remember in Leviticus chapter 10, when Aaron, the high priest, got anointed, the ceremonial for his installment as high priest. On that day or the next, probably it was that day, his two oldest boys did something. Remember what it was? Remember what they did? What his two oldest boys did? Aaron's, the high priest's sons did. Remember the story? They ring a bell? They went into the tabernacle offering strange fire. And the Lord burned them to death on the spot. They were turned to ash immediately by God. I mean, they were the next two high priests coming up. They were burned to death by God. And then the Lord spoke to Aaron, or after he said, Aaron, do not let your sons come into the tabernacle after drinking. That's apparently what they did. They were celebrating his installment, right, as high priest, because he's the highest person in the land. Now, in the nation, he's like, the president or whatever, next to Moses. So they get a little tipsy and everything. Well, let's go in there and praise the Lord with some strange fire, and they're burned to death. It's like Aaron's just lost two of his boys. So the Lord said, don't drink when you come into the tabernacle. So all I'm saying is this. The Lord does not put up with stuff like we think he does. He's simply patient. Patience is not tolerance. But the point is that Nehemiah, where we were, let's go back there to Nehemiah. But due to the fear of God, because he knew that he would have to answer for his conduct. And here's the thing. What he really wanted to do was have a good showing. Why not live in such a way that what you hear from the Lord is what?
True and real.
What do you want? What words do you want to hear from the Lord when you see him?
Well done.
There you go. Well done, thou good and faithful servant, into the joy of thy Lord. In other words, you did a good job. Don't you want to be able to have the Lord say that you did a good job?
Absolutely.
Well, what? It's all about what do you want? What do you want out of life? Do you want something for this life or something for the next? And that's really the big question. So if we only want something for this life, then we will violate the fear of God, because we will live any way we want. Oh boy, what a thing. But let's continue. In verse 16, to pick up also what he said. He said, I gave myself to the work on this wall without purchasing a field, and all my associates were gathered there for the work. Here's the second good part of this man as governor for 12 years. Guess what he was doing? He was working. A lot of politicians, a lot of governors, a lot of people in power, what they do is they sit in their lavish little apartments or houses, and they dictate everybody. You do that, and you do that. Nehemiah was a worker. He was working next to a regular guy. He's the governor building on the wall, or whatever it is he had to do. I'll tell you, these kinds of politicians are so rare. If you ever get in office, you want to keep them there like forever, And it's a sad day when that man left after 12 years, I think.
Yeah, because they are hard to find.
They're so rare. I mean, people, I think a lot of people go into politics because all they want is power. They don't want to serve. They want power. But you know what? They don't realize that they have to answer to God for it. And God's not putting up with He's not putting up with this. Yeah. And that's how I look at this. God help us. So when you pray for leaders, pray that they conduct themselves in their office with the fear of God. That's what I would say is the best prayer. Because if they have the fear of God, they're going to act like Nehemiah. They're not going to oppress the people, and they're going to be part of the working group. They're going to work along with them. They're not going to be lazy. They're not going to be dictators, so to speak, and selfish. So I gave myself to, and I made my associates work on the wall too. It worked there. They don't say. So anyway, I gave myself to work on this wall. And I didn't buy a field, meaning I'm not trying to be a land grabber and become wealthy on the real estate. He said there were 150 Jews and officials who dined with me routinely, in addition to those who came to us from the nations all around us. Every day, 1 ox, 6 select sheep. Say that fast 3 times, wow. And some birds were prepared for me, and every 10 days, all kinds of wine in abundance. Despite all this, I did not require the food allotted to the governor, for the work was demanding on the people. He loved the people. If you ever get somebody in power who loves the people, keep them. Really. But the thing is, he was only going to be there for 12 years. But look at his last statement. Remember me, God, for good, for all that I have done for this people. Now I have a question. What do you think of that particular prayer? Do you think it's like a legitimate prayer, or does it seem like works-oriented, or what do you think? Remember me for good, oh my God, for all that I've done for this people. I think that's Holy Spirit inspired. Of course. Right? Because we will be rewarded for the good that we do here. That's what the Lord said. The Lord said that if we build our ministry with gold, silver, and precious stones instead of wood, hay, and stubble. But let's go there, actually, since we're talking about that. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Okay. Let's go down to verse, 9. We'll start with 9 there. 1 Corinthians 3:9.
First Corinthians?
Yeah, 3.
Okay, right here.
Okay, let's we are co-workers with God. And you are God's field, you are God's building. You there, Roger?
Yeah.
Okay. According to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation. That will be the gospel. But someone else will build upon it. Each one must be careful how he builds. This refers to the ministry of the Christian. This is service for God, really. For no one can lay any foundation other than what is being laid, which is Jesus Christ. In other words, you can't start a new faith, build on somebody else, for example, like whatever, it might be. If anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, each builder's work will be plainly seen, for the day will make it clear. That is the day of judgment. Because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test what kind of work each has done. If what someone has built survives, he will receive a reward. If someone's work is burned up, He will suffer loss. He himself, though, be saved as through a fire. So what does this tell us? How does this strike you? What's your thoughts on this? Okay, let me ask you this more pointed question. What kinds of things do you think are categorized as gold, silver, and precious stones in a practical way of service? What would you say would be equal to those kinds of elements? Any thoughts? Is it interactive tonight? If you are serving the Lord, what thing would be equatable to gold, silver, and precious stones in your ministry?
I feel that it would be just praying to the whole group and doing what you're told by the Lord to. So obedience. Make sure he's doing the right thing, the right way. All the people that he's working.
Right. Okay, great. And that's good. It's like, well, we could look at Nehemiah, what he did.
Yeah.
Nehemiah, he refused to live lavishly among people who were suffering.
Yeah.
And he paid his own way as governor as best he could. And he made sure that everybody who worked with him also were the same. Nobody domineered like the other kinds of judges. So that would be gold, silver, precious stones, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think doing the service just out of the love of God would be gold, silver, and precious stones. Doing out of the love of the people, out of the love of your ministry. Doing it diligently. Doing it regularly. Learning more about how to do it better, that kind of thing. In other words, you're growing. Remember what the parables are that talk about the talents. Remember that? In Matthew 25, we have the parable of the talents, where one man gets 5 talents, one man gets 2, one man gets 1.
Yeah.
And each one of them, when they have an accounting, they bring back the first 5 with 5 more, the one with 2 more, and the one with 1 he had buried it. He gets rejected. Or the ones in Luke 19 about the minas, which is about $10,000 worth. They receive 1 mina each, 10 men. One guy comes back with 10 extra minas, one comes back with 5, and one comes back with it buried in the sand. So you can see how everybody can have mixed results from their service of the Lord, right? Now, that's gold, silver, and precious stones to do it the right way, like you say. What about wood, hay, and straw? What do you think might be, what kind of service is looking like those, kind of degraded elements? What do you think might be behind that? Any thoughts on that? Any idea? What would a bad Christian service look like?
It would be like
Or is it
a bad dream.
Well,
Sort of.
in other words, the person is called to this particular work.
Yeah.
But if he's doing it poorly, what would that look like? Let's take a pastor. What's the difference between a good pastor and a decent pastor and a bad one? What do you think? Some elements.
Well, my vision of it is a person is there and he's doing all that he possibly can within that group of people that he's bringing in the Lord to them and doing it in the proper way. Not, like maybe you can do this or maybe you can do that. If somebody comes to you and says, well, like, I don't want to be doing this and it comes upon me, but, like, can you help me, pastor or whatever?
Right, well, that's pretty much what you said earlier, but I'm asking about a bad one, not a good one.
Who it's just a job to.
Yeah.
A hireling would be a good, remember what Jesus said? The thief comes for to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come to give you a life that more abundantly. That he said, the hireling runs when what? The wolf comes.
Yeah.
So a bad pastor would he would, let's say he might be ambitious, selfish, he might just do a poor job. He's not diligent. He doesn't really prepare anything. He doesn't visit the sick. He doesn't worry about anybody. He doesn't pray for them. He doesn't do those things. In other words, he's got elements that are poor services. So he could actually make a lot of converts, perhaps. Let's say he gets a lot of converts. People come to the Lord. But as far as his overall ministry goes, he has bad traits that he practices on a regular basis. And because he does, they become elements of wood, hay, and straw. Now, probably you'd have a mixture of both kinds of, you'd have good traits in some and bad traits. The point is this, these are all I'm making. The point is, the way you serve the Lord as a Christian is going to be examined by fire, like the fire of God. If what the fire hits is of God, like it sees, let's say it sees this. Okay, it sees something, and it says, that was good. I find no fault with that one. However, here I find selfishness, and I find pettiness or something bad. So that gets burned away. So he loses what he could have gained in that element of his life. He didn't grow. So he's going to come away with something, but it's possible that a person who's a servant would have the whole thing. Here's one: ignorance. I think if there's a lot of well-meaning pastors who teach really bad doctrine, but they believe it sincerely. But the doctrine itself will burn, and anything that he promoted of it will burn with it. I guess we can go on and on about that. The point that I wanted to make is this. Nehemiah said, "Please remember me for good, O God, for all the good that I did for this people," that is during his service, 12 years, and working on the wall. There's two visits of Nehemiah. So here's the thing. When he went there, he said, I'm going to do the best job I can for the Lord, with the best possible motive, with the best possible understanding that I have. And I'm going to stick to it. So he goes there and he's diligent. He doesn't live lavishly off of the empire's, allotments. He says, no, these people are suffering. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to waive my right. Or you could take a pastor. Some pastors are loaded. I mean, they're loaded. They come away from their ministry with millions of dollars. Now,
That's not the purpose.
don't you think there's something indecent about it?
Yeah.
I do. Because what you're saying to the group is, you can be a millionaire by being a pastor. Well, let me tell you something. You'd have to compromise an awful lot to get there. What I think a pastor should do is not to collect more from his group than the average person in the group. And if he wants more money, let him get it himself. But don't burden the people with it. I mean, a lot of people, this is sad, but it's true. This is my opinion. A lot of Christians have spent more money as a Christian on supporting a building than people. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I don't like it.
All they want to do is have some big building and
Yeah.
all the beauty and that we have the best and this and that.
It's about
It
you're
has
talking.
nothing to do
Right,
with
sorry.
what the Lord wants you to be doing.
Look, look. If you look in the Bible, you're going to find that when the Bible talks about Christians and money, the only recipient that they ever talk about are people. Here's the group. The widow has nobody. The orphan, the poor and needy brother, the poor neighbor, the minister of the gospel. Okay. Money always goes to people. Now here is how the Jews paid for the service of the temple. Here's what it was. they had a half shekel tax on every male per year. Remember when Peter was in, I forget what they were, but someone asked him, does your master pay the poll tax, which is the temple support tax? He says, of course. And so he walks into the house and Jesus is sitting there, and Jesus goes, Peter, let me ask you something. Who do kings collect taxes from, their own children or from the citizens? He said, well, the citizens. He said, then the children are free, right? He says, yeah. He said, however, so we don't raise an offense, go down to the lake. Remember the rest of this story? Remember the rest of it? So go down to the lake and do what? And what's going to happen? Right. In their mouth, there's going to be a shekel for me and you, because each was to pay half a shekel, so the fish will have a whole shekel. Some rich guy on a boat probably dropped it overboard, and that fish picked it up. So that's what one guy said. So that's how they paid their tax, right? Now, so there was a general due. It's actually basically dues. I think if you go to a church building, a church has a building, you should support it, at least for its electric and its insurance and things like that. But that's really your building. But the money should always go to people. So if we give too much to a church, we may not have enough to give to a needy neighbor or a needy brother. So the church has caused you to disobey God by taking too many of your funds. So I don't go along with it. Now, Paul in 1 Corinthians 9 said this. He said, I refuse to take a dime from you. A lot like Nehemiah. I refuse to take a dime from you. He said, and it's really great because he realized that the Corinthians would be very much interested to see if a minister could make money. So Paul modeled working with his own hands. He says, I'm not taking a dime from you. He said, no one's going to rob me of this boast either. That's 1 Corinthians 9. He said, I'll die first. So he did what Nehemiah did. He said, he looked at the people that he was ministering to and said, these people don't need to see a rich pastor. So I'm not taking any more. If I write a book, I'm not going to become rich on my Christian book. If I do things, whatever I do, seminars, whatever, I'm not going to make more money than I should for this group. I think that's how Billy Graham was, Warren. Billy Graham. Mm-hmm. I think he lived rather modestly, but I might be mixing him up with somebody. But I mean, look, a lot of your preachers, famous preachers, lived like paupers. Mm-hmm. I mean, Paul did. Paul didn't have mansions in every church that he founded. Here's what I think. The thing is, money could become a source of burning of the ministry in the day of judgment. Because if we do bad things with money, and we start hounding the people for money, bad. That money is that's their money. They're to give according to as they purpose, not as you demand. You know what? I don't take calls to my house for a charity. I don't care who it is. Here's why. They depend on the impulse giving. The Bible says to purpose in your heart what to give. I don't have time to purpose in 30 seconds. I don't care who you are. If you want to give money, you decide what you can do. And then you determine what the best possible source of that is. Because here's the thing. Whoever gives money to a ministry becomes part of its glory. That's what Paul taught Philippians. He said, when you supported me in the prison, he said that was fruit that went to your account. In other words, you become part of the ministry that ministry does by supporting it. But it always went to people. So that's a bad one for a minister to make money on the ministry. So that's wood, hay, and stubble. All I'm trying to say is Nehemiah had a good idea. He had the fear of God in mind, so he wasn't going to oppress the people like his predecessor examples did. He said, oh, let them do that. Well, I'm not going to do it. Plus, we're going to work, me and my associates. Nobody's going to domineer anybody. And I'm going to eat the provisions according to what I can without taxing the people. He said, remember me, God, for this. That's a perfectly legitimate prayer because it goes to this day of judgment. Remember this. Remember this. So, I think we're done for tonight, actually. I'm getting winded with this this mass. So, any closing thoughts as we go? Before we go here? No? Okay. Well, I hope others can come. I'm going to post this online, I suppose, when we're done. So let me close out. Next month we'll pick up Nehemiah 6. We're getting through the book, okay. But I was very especially interested in getting this particular study done tonight. Glad you guys came. I appreciate it. God bless you.